to share with you how I make my sourdough bread. This one is going to be cinnamon walnut raisin, and we're going to start by feeding our starter. It's going to be very important to have a very bubbly and active starter for this bread. So let's begin, and I will show you how to feed your starter first. To feed your starter, you're going to need your starter. You can either make your own or get some from a friend. I just got some from a friend. You're going to need water, some flour, your scale, a light airy cloth, and a couple of utensils. This is a stirring stick. I'll show you how I use this, and then a spoon to put the flour in the sourdough starter. We're going to do 100 grams of flour. A little more is okay, and you're going to need an equal proportion of water. So we're going to do the tear. So I went over a little bit on the water by a few grams. It was supposed to be 106. I got 117 grams of water, so we're just going to fix it by just adding a little bit more flour to make it even with the water. So now we have an equal amount of flour and water added into the starter. So now if we give it a good stir, you have to mix it in really, really well. Once it's all mixed in, I use this little tool for this. Just clean this off. And then I just like to clean up the sides. This. That's what it should look like once it's fed. And now cover it with a very breathable cloth, and I let it sit next to my oven because it will want a warm spot, and let it rise for a few hours. Gonna check up on our starter. It's been a couple of hours. It's still not ready, but it should start looking like this. See the bubbles forming? So we still need a few more hours before it's ready for bread making. See all those bubbles? That's a good sign. It's doing really well. And in a couple more hours, it'll be ready. Okay, so it's been a few hours, and now our starter is bubbly and active and ready to work with. To make our bread, you'll need your scale, good filtered water. I use a Berkey to filter my water. Your active sourdough starter, some salt. This is just the container that I use, but in here is actually pink Himalayan salt, so that's perfectly fine to use as well. And your flour. I like to use my KitchenAid bowl to make my bread in, but you can use a ceramic or porcelain or glass bowl, whatever you prefer. I just prefer to use this one. I just like the size and the shape of it. It's just very easy to work with. So let's begin. I'm putting the bowl on the scale, and then you hit tare to zero it out. So the recipe is 1,100 grams of flour, 200 grams of starter, 720 grams of water, and 22 grams of salt. This is a double portion. This is the portion portion that I make for my family, but you can just half that. So just divide everything that I said if you want to only make one portion. So we're doing 1100 grams of flour. Zero it out. 200 grams of starter. It's a bit hard to get everything exact, so a little bit over just by a few grams is totally fine. It'll work just fine. So now I'm doing 720 grams of water. And 22 grams of salt. Now that we have all the ingredients in our bowl, I just go ahead and I hand mix. I've never tried using a mixer. This just works for me. So mix it in really well. So you just keep kneading it with your hands. Once it starts coming together, I mix in these kind of motions, kind of scooping that flour from the bottom and putting it on top. So scoop, just press down, and just continue until it's all mixed in really well and you don't have any loose flour. So there, it's mixed in really well, and I will be finishing it up like this. I just kind of bring it all in the middle. Just get the extra dough off your fingers. And then sourdough will require stretch and folds. So it's going to be over the course of a couple of hours. So every 30 minutes, we'll be doing a stretch and fold. So we cover with a plate for 30 minutes, and then I will show you how to do the first stretch and fold. So while you're in the middle of the stretch and folding and waiting, you can just prepare your bread bowls that you're gonna, once we're done with the stretch and folding, the shaping, which I'll show you all how to do that, you're gonna need 2 bowls, because I did a double portion, so we will be splitting the dough into 2. If you did a single portion, don't worry about it, you just do 1 bowl, but it's the same process. So I don't have the bread baskets that most bread bakers have. So I just use these regular ceramic bowls. They're not the same size, I just don't have the same size bowls, but this is what I do. I just cover it with a tea towel, and then the bread's gonna go right in there. But if you have your bread basket, that's even better. Just go ahead and use that. Okay, now we just set it aside and wait on the bread. So now it's been about 30 minutes and we're gonna do our first stretch and fold. Kind of scoop it up from the sides. Pick it up and stretch and fold. Second side, stretch, fold. Third side, stretch, fold. And the last side, stretch and fold. And then I kind of just go like this. And you'll notice each time that the consistency changes, it becomes more firm. Now we cover it again and wait another 30 minutes to do another stretch and fold. Okay, so it's been another 30 minutes. We're gonna do another stretch and fold. Second side. And fourth side. Stretch, fold. And again, I just ball it up like this. And cover again for another 30 minutes. So this is a third stretch and fold. Cover, and now we do our final stretch and fold, and then we're going to do the shaping process. Just like before. Now take some flour, put it all over the table. And scoop the dough out. And because I did a double portion, I'm going to split it into 2 loaves. If you did a single portion, you don't need to do this part. Do my best to split it into 2 equal parts. Usually one turns out bigger than the other, and that's okay. So here I split the 2 loaves. We're going to work with the first one. So kind of put it into this rectangular shape, stretch it all out as much as you can. Okay, so here I have my raisins, my walnuts that I have already chopped, and my cinnamon. So I'm going to start with the cinnamon. I'm going to sprinkle it all around. Now we put our walnuts. And the raisins. Mix it all in there. Now we do our first fold like this. Just add a little bit more of everything. Second fold. Third fold. Now we build the tension. Be careful not to do too much so that it rips on the top. I see it thinning out, so I'm just going to do a couple more times. Okay, my bread looks like this. And we're going to put this one into our first bread bowl. We're going to pinch it so that it sticks together. And we're going to close it up, pinch it a little better. Now we close it up. Cover it with a plate and do the same process with the second loaf. Now place the dough into the fridge for about 6 to 36 hours. I like to do mine overnight so that it's ready in the morning. The next morning my bread is ready to be baked, so I am preheating my oven to 450 degrees. Make sure that you place your Dutch oven into the oven while it's preheating because it will need to be nice and hot for the bread. Next, grab your parchment paper and get a piece ready to place your bread on. Next, grab your bread out of the fridge, place it on top of the parchment paper, and add a little bit of flour on the top like this. Now grab your razor or your knife and let's go ahead and score the bread. I like the leaf design, so these are the cuts that I make to get that leaf design. Now go ahead and grab your preheated Dutch oven. Put your bread, parchment paper, and all directly into the Dutch oven. Then you will bake your bread with lid on for 30 minutes. Once that first 30 minutes is up, you will need to remove the lid and bake for an additional 10 minutes without the lid on. Once the bread is all baked, make sure you let it cool for about 10 to 15 minutes before you cut into it. is definitely a family favorite, and we love to enjoy it with butter and honey on top. Thank you so much for joining me as I shared my sourdough bread recipe, and I hope you will enjoy this bread as much as my family enjoys this recipe.